my 6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the most awesomest homesteading channel on the planet that doesn't really have anything whatsoever to do with homesteading off the grid. Hey, this has to do with homesteading. Let's check the bees. I've got this umbrella here to protect them from the sun. It's going to be hot later today. Look at these beautiful morning glories right here by the bee box. But the bees are doing well. Let's see how they're, oh yeah, they're coming and going. I want to give a special shout out to my buddy Heath from over at Heath's house. Please subscribe to his channel and watch his videos. Heath took care of our property for us while we were gone. And you see that white box in the middle of our honeybee hive there? We had a double-decker box, but we only had bees in the bottom. Heath brought over that white box. It was full of comb and honey from his bees. He put it in there. And of course, our worker bees and the queen moved up to it, and they have thrived on that. And now they're populating the top box. So thanks, Heath, for doing that. Beautiful mimosa tree back there. I always like to make sure to get some video footage of that tree when it's in bloom this time of year. Here's our fruit orchard. So I'm going to do a walk and talk. First of all, if you've been staying current with the channel, you now know that we're home. Forgive the traffic noise. It's one of the reasons that is the reason we planted this privacy hedge here. These eastern red cedars are 20 feet tall now. We planted them 8 years ago. None of them were more than a foot tall, but we've got a privacy hedge all the way around the property now. So you might hear some car sounds during this video, but I have to get far away from the house because my son, Daniel, missed his guitars while we were in the Philippines. Again, we were in the Philippines for a couple of weeks. We're back now. We've been back for a couple of days. Just now getting around to making a video because we've just been busy with the whole getting back thing. And Daniel's football camp started the day after we were back. And it's a 12-hour time difference, still dealing with night being day and day being night for us. So anyway, but he's playing his guitars, making up for lost time. And so I can't get too close to the house or I'll pick up copywritten music on here and the bots will catch that and tell me I'm a bad boy here on social media. So I'm just going to do a walk and talk. We'll show you some of the trees. A lot of you folks have been with this channel since the very beginning, and you can remember when this was just a hay field. When we bought it 9 years ago, you watched me plant the trees. Regularly, folks will ask for updates, so I'm going to give you those updates on this walk and talk. So it was a wonderful trip. I'm going to talk a little bit about the trip and some things I already knew, but that I kind of had reconfirmed because sometimes, we need to brush up, take some lessons on things we already know. It's not so much that we forget them, but maybe we become lax, Let's see, I want to show. Yeah, all those trees. I mean, we planted all these. Let's just walk through them, see how everything looks. So I've spent a total of about 8 of the last 15 years in the Philippine Islands. It's our other home. We have 2 homes right outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, here, and Davao City, Philippines. Of course, when we're over there, we go all over those islands. We have family all over the country, so up in Luzon, Manila, down in Mindanao, and there's so many beautiful places to vacation and visit in between. We're just always going everywhere. We'll stay at a resort for 2 or 3 days, and then we'll hop over to another one for 2 or 3 days, etc. But look at this. I am under a canopy. I am underneath a canopy of a forest that my wife and my son and myself planted 9 years ago. It took us a couple of years to do it, so 7 to 9 years ago. You can't even see the tops of the trees. They're so tall now. Isn't this incredible? And nothing in here was taller than my shoulder because we dug up saplings and seedlings from the tree line up on the other side of our property, transferred them down here in buckets, and it worked. This is what we wanted. We wanted to have a beautiful forest. I do mow the grass in here so that we can walk through here, and we do walk through here regularly like I'm doing now, taking the beauty. So I actually mowed yesterday. I'll tell you, the lawn hadn't been mowed in the 2 weeks we were gone, and it looked like we brought the jungle back with us. So anyway, it was an excellent trip, my most enjoyable trip ever to the Philippines. I'm going to tell you why. Even though it was hampered the first few days because we had a problem with this, and I'm not going to discuss that problem because I already have. It's in the past, and that's why I'm leaving it. And this is a reminder too. That was like a big aha. Listen, a lot of times we look back on our past and we think, oh, those were the good old days, etc. Listen, I had a history professor in college, and I still remember this because it was so profound. He said, the good old days never existed. They never existed. And we asked, what do you mean by that, Doc? He goes, if things were so good, then why did we change? Why did we leave them? If things were so good, why did we? Because we're always in the pursuit of better things, better. Well, most people. Some people, they get stuck in a rut. They become stagnant. They become stale. They no longer seek out life. They no longer live. They merely exist. And they're basically sitting around waiting to die. And that's a very sad situation. We all know people like that. I know people that live within sight of me who are pretty much just existing, waiting to die. The problem that we had with this, unfortunately, is a similar situation. And it was part of my hopes that if we could show this individual just how much life there is out there to live, that maybe they'd have like an aha, like an awakening, and decide to go out there and live it. But that was not the case. As if you listen to my last video, it's titled, I'm Embarrassed to Be an American. And you're like, whoa, Kevin, you're a combat veteran. You love it. Yeah, I do love America. But I'll tell you, you go watch that video and you'll understand the meaning behind that title. But there are people who basically exist. They are ruled by addictions, and they have no interest in anything that they don't already know or understand, and they have no desire to change. And you can't help people who don't want to be helped. There was a reminder number one. I'm talking about the things that I was kind of reminded of on my trip to the Philippines. You can't help people who do not want to be helped, number one. And number two, everybody is living exactly the way they want to live. Otherwise, they'd live differently. Listen to that. Pay attention. This is deep. Somebody said in the comments here recently, they love my straight from the hip style when I come out and talk because I don't sugarcoat stuff. Everybody is living the way they want to live. Otherwise, they'd be living differently. They say, well, no, Crazy Lake, because this problem, I got that problem, and this person did this, and, I'm here doing this because of him, her. But no, listen, if you were not comfortable the way you're currently living, you would make a change. Once we find our comfort zones, and this applies to all of us, it applies to me too, and I get complacent with this, and when I catch myself being complacent, I have to say, hey, wait a minute, Crazy Lake, stop being so complacent, because you're not through yet. The minute we become complacent is proof that we're comfortable, and then we no longer, look, can't even see those cars going by. Isn't this great? We no longer seek change. We no longer seek improvement. We no longer seek betterment. We no longer seek growth, okay? So you'll hear people complaining about how they're unhappy about this or unhappy about that. Listen, those people are just unhappy. They're just not happy. And there's so many of them out there, especially in the U.S., okay? So with that said, I'm going to talk about briefly my favorite thing about the Philippines. And it was a great trip. I'm going to talk about it. Even the first 3 days when I was basically babysitting a drunk, 3 or 4 days, I think it was 4 days, he got kicked out of a hotel bar the first night, kicked out of a restaurant, a very nice restaurant / bar the third night, and then the fourth night, he was getting kicked out of the hotel. So terrible. We had 3 rooms worth of people. Me and Dearly, my beautiful bride, giggly girl, in one room. This person that we brought on a all expense paid trip to the beautiful Philippine Islands had his own room. And then Daniel and some of his cousins were in another room. So at 6 a.m., the guard's like, look, I let you guys sleep a little bit, but he was I'm not going to go into detail, but the guard basically said, you either get him out of this hotel or I'm getting the police and he's going to jail because we're not going to take any more of this abuse. He was being destructive, very disrespectful. And Dearly literally was starting to get out of bed to start packing and go wake up our other guests. And I told her, I said, no, honey, this is enough. I mean, it had already been enough, but this was the straw that broke the camel's back. I said, I'm taking him to the airport and I'm putting him on the next plane home. And that's what I did. If you watch the other videos, you know this. So, but here's what I love most about the Philippines. Now we're on the other side of our man-made forest. Isn't this beautiful? I love the attitude of the Filipino people. And the best way I can describe it and sum it up is thus. Here in the U.S., so many people, especially where I live, it's a very affluent area. There's a lot of old money here. There's a lot of privilege. So many people here have so much, yet so few are even grateful for anything. Most of them are grateful for nothing, okay? In the Philippines, the people have so little, but they are so grateful for any little thing that they do have. They're so grateful for a kind gesture. They're so grateful for being treated with respect and dignity. And I mean, you treat them to a lunch, they'll go on the rest of the day about how grateful they are. They can't thank you enough. I personally know people that, and listen, when I do something for somebody, it's because I want to do something for that person. It's not because I want a pat on the back. It's not because I want a reward. It's not because I want something in return. But it is nice hearing a thank you, okay? I know so many people who, getting a thank you out of them, it would be easier to pull one of their teeth without using anesthesia. So, hey, you accept folks for how they are. We're not going to change them. It's hard enough to change ourselves. It takes a lot of work to change ourselves. But I'll tell you this, that's a very unattractive trait to me. If you lack gratitude, somebody said one time, where there is no gratitude, there is entitlement. And that made so much sense, because think about it. If you're given something, somebody does you a favor, and you're not grateful about it, well, then you clearly just believe that you're entitled to that gift, or you're entitled to that favor. And, well, why would you be thankful in the first place? Man, it's getting humid. And I did go a couple weeks without exercising, so maybe I am a bit out of shape. Catch me breathing hard. So, anyway, what I do is again, lack of gratitude, I think, is one of the ugliest traits humans can have. And when I find folks who basically have none, I distance myself from those folks. And it's sad, because it's a learned behavior, and folks pass this on to their kids. I shared this many times. I'll share it again. I often tell a story about, I don't think I ever told the other half of the story. So I'm going to tell you a story in less than a minute that you probably heard before, but I'm going to tell you the second half. So we always have kids with us. These pine trees were about a foot tall when I planted them 4 years ago. They're really slow to start growing, but once they take off, they really excel. This one's probably 12 feet. Got a whole row of pines going up here. So we always have kids with us. They're Daniel's friends, and they're kids that I've coached for many years. And I remember a time we were going to a practice, actually, and we left early so we could stop and get something to eat. We were at a Subway, actually, and we had one of these kids with us. And something I'm going to talk about too is givers and takers, because my wife and I are givers. A lot of y'all are givers. I'm going to talk about boundaries, because it's very important, if you're a giver, to set boundaries, because takers don't have any. They will take and take and take and take, and it's because they're entitled. They have entitled mindsets. They will take and take and take. And then the minute you've had enough, and this happens to us, we kind of give people a lot of slack. We think, they're eventually going to realize they're really taking advantage in this situation. But once they clearly don't, or what it is they don't care. They view you as a sucker. They're parasites looking for hosts, kind of like an addict or an alcoholic, which is the situation with the very unfortunate situation with the individual that we treated to an all-expense-paid trip to the Philippines, which was supposed to be 2 weeks, but it ended up only being 4 days for that individual, because we were tired of getting kicked out of hotels and bars and restaurants. And he didn't ruin the trip, because we still had a lot of fun those first 3 or 4 days, because we were with family. We were at the places we wanted to be, except the hotel he almost got us kicked out of. We actually went to the dumpiest, dirtiest dive in the city, because the last time we were over there, it was the last place where they actually would allow you to smoke in your room. And before going there, we were at a world-class 5-star resort, the beach resort where we had our son Daniel's first 5 birthdays. We were living over there. And he was in his room smoking cigarettes, chain smoking, binge drinking, and watching headline Fox News, whatever network he watches, instead of snorkeling along the coral reefs, instead of going out with us and renting mopeds and driving around the islands and hiking through the jungle to a beautiful set of falls and swimming in the river. The aqua blue waters. It was just just stay in a room, binge drink, chain smoke, watch mainstream media, and then go out and get blackout, belligerent, drunk every night and get kicked out of restaurants, bars, and eventually a hotel. But man, I was going on like 3 hours of sleep because I was spending the day with my family doing all these fun things and babysitting a drunk at night. So 4 days of that was enough. After he left, I finally did start getting caught up on sleep, and I really enjoyed the trip. But those first 3 days, he didn't ruin them for us, but he did hamper them. So anyway, we're on our way to practice. We have one of our son's friends with us, and he's a good kid. All these kids are good kids, okay? The problem is they're picking up bad habits or bad life skills from their parents. They have entitled parents, they have disrespectful parents, they have privileged parents. So we stop at a Subway, and I, of course, treat everybody, it's me, dearly, Daniel, and this kid, to lunch. So my son, my own son, whose actual responsibility it is for me to feed, clothe, and shelter, he always says thank you if we stop and we have a meal, because, listen, that's how we're raising him. We want him to be grateful, we want him to be appreciative, and we want him to show that to others. We do not want him to be disrespectful, ungrateful, all these ugly traits. So we're finishing up the meal. Everybody got a foot long. We ate half of it, and we wrapped the other halves up. And we're taking them to go. And so my son is thanking me for the lunch. I said, well, you're welcome. Well, the other kid's just sitting there, not saying anything. So my son elbows him and says, hey, insert kid's name. I would never say it on the channel. Says, thank my dad. And the guy was like, why? And Daniel said, because he just treated you to lunch. And the kid says, I'm spending the day with you, so isn't it his responsibility to feed me? Why would I thank him for that? In that moment, I don't want to say that I no longer like that kid, because I do. I know where he gets it. He gets it from his mother. His mother's a taker, a user. He's getting it from her. He spends so much time. It's one of these situations, a child that's being overmothered and underfathered. The father just works, views it as if that's his responsibility. I provide a nice house. I provide all the stuff. You know, my wife can raise the kids. Overmothering and underfathering leads to disasters in the lives of male children. Few of them grow up to become real men. I can look at the problem child we took to the Philippines with us. At most, they become adult boys. That's what you end up with male children who, and again, don't get all pissed off, single moms. I know a lot of single moms who are better fathers than most fathers. It's true. So anyway, that kid had no sort of gratitude. Interestingly, I don't think he's been back to our place since, because I don't want my son hanging out with kids like that, because that rubs off. You know, you've heard it said, stick with the winners. Me and some of my buddies that I coach with, we're very discreet about who we will allow our children to hang out with. And we tell them, stick with the winners. And it's not necessarily the ones that are good at a ball sport or the ones who are, you know, successful, whatever. It's the children who are being raised well, who are grateful, who have gratitude, who are disciplined. And that kid ain't one of them. And it's unfortunate, because he's just learning terrible habits from home. But hey, you know, upper middle class, big house, live in a nice subdivision in a wealthy zip code, so nobody would question it. Nobody would think about it. They think, oh, there's no problem here. Well, later that evening, we were at practice, and after practice, no, it was just before practice. In practice, our football practices started at 6 p.m. School's out at like 4 over there. A couple of kids came up to me, and they were on the team, and they kind of like looked like something was wrong. I'm like, hey, what's going on, guys? Is there a problem? And then one says, Coach, we're hungry. So we came over right after school, you know, because we didn't, because if you ride the bus home, you got enough time to get there, jump in the car, and turn around and come back. So a lot of the kids would just go straight over to the field. Well, these kids, they didn't have any money on them. They were hungry. They said, can you get us something to eat? And I said, yeah, man. I said, I mean, I hate to give you leftovers. I don't want to look, you know, derogatory, but we've got a few subs in the truck. You know, we got footlongs. We got 6 inches left. You want those? Those kids got so excited. So I went to the truck, gave these kids these sandwiches. There were 2 boys. The whole time they're eating them, they're thanking me. Oh, thanks, Coach. Oh, God, thanks, Coach. We're so hungry. Oh, my gosh. they wouldn't have had the energy to go through a 2-hour football practice on those empty bellies. And these two kids were two of our star players. And let me tell you this, let me point this out about these two kids. In comparison to most of the guys on the team, both of them come from a lower socioeconomic situation. Okay? I'll tell you this, both of them come from families who are divorced. There are step parents involved, step families involved. I actually had parents, men, adult boys probably at most, trust fund type babies, at some point in the season say something to me derogatory about those guys. And I put those guys in their place because they mentioned something about how, well, it's socioeconomics. It's all about socioeconomics. And I told those men, I said, yeah, you know what? It is right. You're right. It's about any problem you're seeing here is about because one of them, they thought their kid was being bullied. Everybody hated their kid. Well, why would everybody hate my kid? Because your kid was an a-hole. And I told the guy this. He kept saying, well, it's socioeconomics. Look who's picking on him. No, your kid's a snob. And I told him that. And he's running into some country boys who aren't going to take it. By about the third time he tells them all the reasons he's better than them, which basically those reasons being all the stuff he has that they don't, they're going to sock him in the mouth. Because he clearly was never taught to keep his mouth shut, so they're going to teach him. And they did. And the guy was like, but it's socioeconomics. Yeah, it is socioeconomics, but not theirs, it's yours. If you think that because you have more stuff or you have more money that you're better than anybody, you, friend, are one of the poorest people on earth. Them's just the facts. All right, so anyway, those kids were so grateful, and I'll tell you what, those boys, both of them, they've been to our house a lot since then. Because that's who I want my son hanging out with. People who are grateful, people who are respectful, people who are disciplined. And that was one of the reawakenings I got to have when I went to the Philippines. Our family, I don't say Dearly's family because they're my family. Our Filipino family treats me with more respect and dignity than my family of origin ever did. I come from a very toxic background. And once again, by having this friend, he's somebody I knew from my childhood, reminded me of it. I mean, everything out of his mouth, I was like, oh my gosh, this is why I don't go back to where I'm from. And I didn't need to with him there. It was like he was bringing that toxic backwoods, I don't want to say white trash because that's derogatory. I will say Caucasian garbage. He was bringing all that Caucasian garbage that I spent 20 years, the first 20-some years of my life around, right back to me. I don't need to take a trip back there. So anyway, man, I could go on and on, but I'm not going to. I didn't make the last video to embarrass that individual, and I'm not going to make one now to embarrass him, and I never will because that's not who I am. But anytime I can either learn a lesson or be reminded of a lesson, I will use those as examples. Now, was I being a sucker? Again, this individual suffers with addiction, controlled by cigarettes, and we were in a city that has a smoking ban, which was a real problem. Hence all of his smoking in the 5-star resorts. Part of the reason he was getting kicked out of getting our whole family kicked out of the hotel before we put him on the plane. Again, go back and watch the previous video before this one. I don't want to rehash that. Controlled by alcohol. Now, I drink. I love beer. I do it at the end of the day once my responsibilities are met. And not every day and not in excess. If I catch myself kind of going overboard, I'm like, whoa, wait, what's going on here? And for me, it's typically an indication that I'm either not doing something that I want to be doing or I'm doing something that I don't want to be doing. And so I realign what's going on in my life. I get that in check. A lot of times I'll just stop for a while, get it out of my system. Because listen, this is how addiction works. Let's use alcohol for an example. You have a substance. It was believed for many, many years, and some people still believe this. And I'm not trying to sway your beliefs. It was believed that alcoholism was a disease. But there was never any science to prove it. Some doctor, years ago said, But let me tell you about 2016. Was it 26? No, it was Barack Obama, okay? And I'm just stating facts. Because of what I'm going to tell you doesn't mean that I like him. It doesn't mean that I don't like him. I'm not political. I concern myself with my life, my family's life, how we're living it, and how the things we're doing affect us. But you remember Obamacare, right? Oh, I miss these sounds of these cicadas. We're up at the top of the property now. The house is down there somewhere. Again, this was all a hayfield when we bought it 9 years ago. We've let the back 3 acres reforest, and it's so thick you can't even see through it now. So when you think of Obamacare, you think of his failed attempt to make affordable insurance for everybody. It was really stupid. Guys like me, who's fully covered by I'm 80% at the VA, which means I'm tier 1 disabled veteran, which means I get everything. If I could get cancer and the VA will treat it. But because I didn't have a corporate health insurance plan during the Obamacare years, I still had to pay $1,750 come tax season as a penalty for being irresponsible and not having health insurance. And as a matter of fact, one of those years, my son had to have oral surgery. He had some teeth that needed to be surgically removed. That cost me $2,250. I paid with my money in cash because my family, my responsibility. But I still got to pay a penalty because I was irresponsible. But here's one of the good things about Obamacare. They put billions of dollars into addiction research because it was an area that had never really been studied. People didn't want to deal with it. They'd say, oh, go to AA, go to NA. We don't know how to fix this. Go find some sky daddy and pray to him and convince yourself you were inherently born with all these terrible things wrong with you. And if you don't fix them, you're going to continue to drink and drug, and you're either going to die or go to jail or go to a mental institution. And they say it's not a religious program. So anyway, what they found in the research of addiction, and there's this whole field out there now called addictionology, and it's been there for a while. They found out this is how addiction works. Let's take a substance like alcohol. If you use that substance, if you consume alcohol or any other substance, mood-altering substance, you use substances, okay? Now, if you do it too much, too often, too regularly, or in excessive amounts, you are a substance abuser. You abuse substances. If you do that long enough, you will become addicted. And what is happening there, the science behind it, is that you're changing your blood's, your entire bodily system's homeostasis. That's a fancy scientific term that means balance. So let's say, like the guy I took to the Philippines. I knew he was a substance abuser. I had no clue he had gone far beyond the point of being an addict. If you drink alcohol long enough, regular enough, a certain percentage of your blood will be made up of alcohol. It might be 2%. That's your homeostasis. You have to have it or you're off kilter. You're out of balance. You're off, literally, like when you wake up, you don't have balance because you've urinated out that alcohol, you've sweated it out, you've detoxed a little bit. You have got to put it right back in your system. So you might get up in the middle of the night to pee, and you might open a beer and drink it because your homeostasis is off. Once you've reached that point, you're addicted, okay? You're no longer in control of your life. Your addictions are in control of you. Now, what do? Hey, you got to stop. You either stop or, well, do you have to go to a quasi-religious organization? No. You might be so bad off that you do need to, but the thing to keep in check is once you see you're starting to abuse a substance, it really takes, if you have the discipline, stop. Get it out of your system, get your homeostasis back in line, and think about, why am I doing this? Because there's an answer. It's not because you were inherently born with all these character defects. No, there's either something going on in your life that you're not really happy about. It's not a pleasant experience, or there's something you want to be doing that you're not doing. And okay, so anyway, so was I a sucker? I'm getting back to this because we know that addicts, alcoholics, they will seek out, they're parasites seeking out hosts. The old terminology for these hosts is enabler. You're an enabler, and you see it a lot, especially adult children who use their parents. Oh, that's my son, or that's my daughter, that's my baby. You got to love your baby. You got to take care of them. You're not an enabler. You're a sucker. The addict/alcoholic knows exactly what they're doing. You're just dumb enough and you're enough of a sucker to let them to continue to do it. You'll see them, they'll have adult children living with them, these suckers. The hosts let the parasite stay there forever, or, I know of cases where, they'll marry or get involved in relationships with women just like dear old mom, because mom was always a sucker, so they're seeking out the next sucker. And ironically, a lot of those women, or if it's men, if it's vice versa, or if you're a homosexual, whatever, they also grew up watching their sucker parent be the sucker host to their parasitic other parent or someone else in their life. So it's like, it's learned behavior. It's repeat behavior. Like the kid that wouldn't thank me for a sandwich because he was entitled to it. He felt that was my responsibility. So why would he thank me? His mother's the same way. His mother's a user. And now that season started again, we have our boundaries firmly in check. She's one of these parents that will talk to you at the beginning of the season about trading driving, and then you say sure, and the next thing you know, you're taking their kid to practice and bringing them home the whole season, and they don't do it once. But the minute you stop or the minute you say no, guess what? You're the a-hole. And that brings me back to what I mentioned before and what I was reminded of in the Philippines when I took the parasite with us. If you're a giver, you had better set boundaries, because takers don't have any. They will take and they will take and they will take. And then once you've had enough and you finally put your foot down and say no, you're the a-hole. So keep that in mind. I've made it up to the campground. Isn't this beautiful? There's our fire pit. Look, I want to show you from the main. It's Camp Bigfoot Sasquatch Trail coming up here. This is we keep this mowed down wide enough to be a road. We can drive our vehicles up here, and our friends can as well. But that road goes down to the house. But you can't even see the house. It's down there somewhere. That's how much this has grown since we got it 9 years ago. Isn't it beautiful? So there's a bunch of life lessons. Let me actually talk about the trip a little bit. So we finished out our time in Mindanao. I made that last video from Eden. What a beautiful mountain resort. It's halfway up Mount Apo. Mount Apo is the highest point in the Philippines. It's over 10,000 feet high. It's literally as high as the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. But it makes that ascension. And I mean, it was a cloudy day when I made that video, but normally you can look right down over the mountainside and see Davao City below in the Bay of Davao. It's a gorgeous view. They have a pond that they keep stocked with tilapia and catfish. You fish in it and they come take the fish right off your hooks, and 10 minutes later you're putting it in your belly. Such a wonderful experience. And then we went back into the city, stayed at a marvelous 5-star hotel. It's called Apo View Hotel. Gets the name because you look out the windows and you see Mount Apo. Stayed there for a couple more nights while we continued to see family. We continued to see friends. Here's an amazing story. I'm a big believer and practitioner of a philosophy called The Secret, which is pretty much the law of attraction. So the night before I actually sent my buddy home on a plane, well, my former buddy, I will have nothing to do with this individual again ever, because he disrespected and abused myself and my family and the wonderful people of the Philippines. And I have a zero tolerance policy for that. I don't care if you're a member of my family of origin. I don't care if you're my next door neighbor. If you disrespect me and or my family, you will not get a second chance to do so. And I have members of my family of origin who are very aware of that, and I have a next door neighbor who's very aware of that. You can ask the guy that lives right beside me on one side, hey, what's your neighbor like? Crazy Lake. You know what he'd tell you? He'd say, you know what? I like him. He's respectful. He keeps to himself, but if I've ever needed help, he's always been there to help me. He's always courteous in passing. As a matter of fact, he'd probably tell you about the Christmas gift I got him last year, a $300 multi-utility tool, because he likes to work outside like me, and he's older, and I knew it could help him, so I got him that Christmas gift. The other one, you ask, oh, he's an a-hole. He's a jerk. I wouldn't pee on him if he was on fire, and he's just a dumb hillbilly from West Virginia anyway. How can two different people, both of whom live right beside me, say two such very different things about me? I'll tell you. And they're both being honest, and what they say is true. It's because I return treatment in kind. Not necessarily, I just won't have anything to do with you. I'm not going to lower myself to be an a-hole. This guy treated me with respect and dignity, as he did my family, as he has always done. And as a matter of fact, a week after we gave him his Christmas gift, he brought us one. I wish I had brought it out here. This man is the most talented artist nobody's ever heard of. He paints with oiled paints. He painted us this beautiful picture, and it's in our living room, and that's where it will forever stay. He treated me with respect and dignity, and I treated him the same in kind. The other guy is an arrogant, narcissistic jerk, thinks he's more important than he is, was always disrespectful toward me, toward my family. So I pretty much, after putting up with it, because again, we're givers, we gave him time, we gave him slack, but once we saw the behavior wasn't going to change, I pretty much let him know, because he was whining and crying about not being where he wants to be in life, and it's all somebody else's fault. I finally said to him, I said, you're not where you want to be in life because you don't do anything. You don't work. If you spend as much time focused on trying to succeed in what it is that you do as you do coming up with excuses why you failed, you'd probably be one of the most successful people on earth. He never came back, which is fortunate, and thank God for small favors. I told him what he needed to hear, but what he didn't want to hear. The guy, so if you were to ask that guy, I'm sure he'd tell you I'm a jerk. And hey, he's not lying. I treat people the way they show me they want to be treated. And they show me how they want to be treated based upon how they treat me. Pretty good way to live. And I learned that from a sergeant first class I had when I was in the Army. He and I became best of friends before I got out of his unit. He used to take me to Seattle Seahawk football games. Love the guy. His name's Eddie Baker. Other people in our unit would tell you that he was a jerk and he was mean and they wanted to quit the Army just because of him. Well, why? What's the difference? I treated Sergeant First Class Baker with respect and dignity, and he treated me the same. And he told us that at the beginning. We got to that unit. It was the Warriors in Transition Battalion. See if you see anything behind me here. He told us that up front. He says, I will treat you the way you show me you want to be treated, and you will show me how you want to be treated based upon how you treat me. And he was true to his word. The guys that didn't like him is because they were jerks to him. They were disrespectful, they were abusive, and he didn't tolerate it. And I adopted that behavior in my life from that guy. So, with that said, the night before, my former buddy went back to our dive of a hotel room and was smoking on the streets in Davao City, which has a smoking ban, and was led to the secret, hidden, designated smoking area because the people that run these hotels, they know that smokers are going to smoke. They don't have the discipline to not smoke because their addiction controls them. They don't control their addiction. Led him around back and said, sir, here's a chair. Said, here, just throw your cigarette butt in this bin. And of course, that's when he just lost it and picked up the chair and started slamming it against the wall, saying, I traveled 36 hours to get here. I should be able to effing smoke wherever I effing want. The guard somehow got him back to his room, and then he waited until 6 a.m. and came and told us, if you don't get this guy out of this hotel, I'm going to have him arrested because he's being disrespectful, he's damaging property. And so instead of packing up 3 rooms worth of family members, I just took him to the airport because we'd had enough. But just before that, my brother Ray, who is Daniel's godfather, and is not really my brother, he's my best friend in the Philippines, one of my best friends in the world. He's an older gentleman. He turns 82 the last day of this month. We were at an Irish pub and restaurant and met the owner, a wonderful man named Andrew. Andrew is from England. He's been in the Philippines for 25 years. He owns more than a dozen successful businesses. We were having a wonderful conversation with Andrew, Ray, and myself. All of us entrepreneurs, all of us successful in our own businesses. Ray's in real estate. I'm, of course, in social media. Andrew's in everything. He's in solar panel, restaurant, hotel. He owns hotels, restaurants, solar companies. We really enjoyed talking to him, but my former buddy got us thrown out of there when he actually started touching young Filipino women, started degrading. It was such a nightmare. Well, so the next night, Ray and I actually went back to Andrew's. It was called Blarney's Irish Restaurant. Trying to see Andrew again because he told us when he was leading us out of the restaurant, he said, gentlemen, I'd love to talk to you guys again, but I'd prefer it if you don't bring the other guy. And I said, trust me, we're not bringing him anywhere. And I didn't know yet at the time that I would actually be putting him on the next plane out because he hadn't actually started to destroy property at the hotel yet, and get us all, the whole family kicked out of there. So Ray and I went back the next night. We wanted to see Andrew to apologize again for our friend's behavior, even though that was his apology to give, but he would never give it because he's an entitled individual and he feels that he just has the right to behave as he wants. But Andrew wasn't there. So the next night was our last night in Davao City before then we went to the Eden Resort. Then we left. We went to Manila. I took my wife there, and I wanted to have dinner there with her, and I wanted her to meet Andrew. Andrew wasn't there. He was off running one of his other businesses. He actually was at a hotel he owns. It was right beside the resort we stayed on at Samal Island, where we always had Daniel's birthdays, where my former buddy was chain smoking, binge drinking, and watching Fox News all day in his room, while we rented motor scooters and drove around the island and snorkeled over the beautiful coral reefs. There's so many people in America, when they travel abroad, what do? They go clubbing at night, hang out hungover in the room all day, watching headline news, and then they'll go home and talk about what a great time they had in Paris, what a great time they had in London, what a wonderful time they had in the Philippines. And they never experienced any of those places. They went there and they went clubbing every night. That's sad. That is not international travel. That's international drinking, drunkenness. It's stupidity is what it is. Okay, so anyway, we're getting ready to go to Manila. We spent our last 2 or 3 days in Manila because we have half of our family up in Manila. We had an early flight. I think it was a 6:30 flight out of Davao City. So it's 6 a.m. We're in the airport. Again, lamenting to my beautiful bride dearly, a.k.a. Giggly Girl. Man, I wish you could have met Andrew. He was such an exceptional guy. So we're standing there getting ready to go through our gate. I look over. Here comes Andrew, this man from England. He's 55. He's a little bit older than me. He was going to Manila to install. He was doing a solar panel installation for, and I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to. It's one of the most successful business owners in the Philippines. The man owns a bakery chain. He's got over 1,000 franchises. Andrew was going up to oversee the installation of solar power for this guy. This guy's electric bill was $1,500 a month. Andrew told me that this guy's kitchen was bigger than most barns here in Virginia. Andrew's a worldly man. He's been around the world. He's been to Virginia. I was like, how did you get that deal? He goes, well, I had a friend that knew him, and I asked my friend to introduce him to me. We met for dinner. I treated him with respect and dignity. He treated me with respect and dignity. And I said, sir, I think I might be able to solve a problem for you. It might be small to you. And he shot him the proposal. And the guy said, hey, why not? I like you. You're a wonderful, respectable guy. Sure. He gave him his business. So he was flying to Manila to oversee this. So I did get to see Andrew again. I did get to introduce my wife dearly to him. And she, talked about how great his restaurant is and how wonderful the food is. And I apologized again because of my former buddy's behavior, and he said, that's not your apology to give, and I know your friend is the type who would never give one. He's entitled, thinks that every problem he has is somebody else's fault. He says, Kevin, I know the type. I said, okay. We got on the plane. We didn't sit close to each other. At the airport in Manila, as we were getting our baggage, I saw him again. I walked over, shook his hand, gave him a hug. I said, one last goodbye. I said, and Dearly came over. She says, we got our bags. We're ready to go. Let's go get a van. I said, Andrew, give me your elevator clip, 30 seconds. You're a successful businessman. You're a successful entrepreneur. I am as well. What can you tell me that might help me be even more successful as I go forward in life? And he said to me, and it's something I already know, and it's something I talk about on this channel all the time, and I've talked about it today, and this is probably one of the reasons he and I clicked. He says, Kevin, stay positive. He says, we see that which we are looking for. So if you're staying positive, you're looking for the good things, that's what you're going to see. And he says, you and I both know that there are bad things out there. We're not naive enough to know that that's not the case. He says the problem is, though, when you become pessimistic, when you become negative. I can use my neighbors as an example. The one guy that thinks I'm great and I think he's cool too, he's positive, he's optimistic. The other guy that would tell you I'm a jerk, hey, and he's not wrong because that's how he treated me. I treated him in kind. Negative, pessimistic, cynical. You spend 5 minutes talking to that guy, you'll feel bad for the next 5 days. So Andrew told me, he confirmed what I already knew, and it was great hearing it from a guy like that. He says, look for the good, you'll find the good. Don't look for the bad. Stay away from the people that do. He says, like your friend. He says, you probably are not going to have anything to do with him again ever, and you shouldn't. You know that, right? And I said, yeah, trust me, I know. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, I was hoping that if I could show this individual how much life there is out there to live, he might want to go out there and live more than just, because that's what he does all day at his house. Sits around chain smoking, binge drinking, watching Fox News. Looking at, and the guy over here does the same thing, but probably CNN because he's left of center. But it's the same disease. It's the same, these people merely exist. They don't live, and they're miserable. And they put this in their head. You watch that news, yeah, it's going to tell you everything that's wrong with the world and every bad thing that's out there. They're in the business of spreading fear, begrudgery, just bad. So Andrew says, look for the good, you'll see the good. He says, always understand that when you have goals and you're working towards them and you're being positive, you might not always make that goal. He says, but stay upbeat, stay positive, because something's going to come along. It might be 6 months later. It might be a year later. Something better's coming, and you're going to be able to look back on what didn't get to you, and you're going to say, that's why that happened. It wasn't meant to be, because there was something better out there waiting for me. I mean, I was stuck in the Philippines for 6 years on an expired visa. I had no money. I couldn't get home. And I used to talk to Dearly about it. Daniel was a baby. He was 1 year old. He was 2 years old. He was 3 years old. He was 5 before we got here. We got here 3 months before he started school. And I had taken a lot of things about life in America and about my life for granted before I got stuck in that situation, before I went off and fought in the war in Iraq and got hurt. That experience humbled me in a way I'd never been humbled. And I found myself talking to Dearly and saying, God, if we could just get home, I would be satisfied forever to just live in a small apartment that I rented, because I owned a home here formerly in Virginia. I would be content to have some job that just paid me enough to pay our bills and put food on our table. Because in the Philippines, we didn't always have food. Daniel did, but Dearly and I went to bed hungry most nights. But it never happened. It never happened. But I stayed positive. I kept working. I kept writing. I kept doing social media. Been doing this for 15 years now. Last month, we had our first 1 billion plus views. And Google that. I'm not going to use numbers, but just Google how much money do you earn off of 1 billion Facebook views. Yeah. And I'm not renting an apartment. We own this. So this is proof in what Andrew was telling me that day. Things might not always work out the way you want them to at the time, but you stay positive. You keep pushing forward. You keep doing the right thing. You look for the good, and in time, you'll find out that that thing you thought you wanted was never meant to be for you because there was something better waiting. And this is that something better. This is that something better. And also what's better is I have real friends like Heath over at Heath's house. Please go subscribe to that guy. He took care of our chickens. They were all here when we got home. He's been taking care of our bees. He's feeding our fish in the pond. He wouldn't allow me to pay him if I offered. He doesn't need the money for one thing, but also he's a real friend. He treats me with respect and dignity, and I do him in return. Like my neighbor on this side, we split firewood together. Another good neighbor who's also a friend back here is the one that gives us the wood. There are good people out there. Don't get stuck in a rut thinking about how terrible the world is and how much people suck. There's a lot of people out there that do suck, and there's a lot of stuff in the world that's terrible. Look for the good, and that's what you'll see. Live for the good, and that's how you'll live. So I'm happy to be back. Still kind of miscombobulated because of the 12-hour time difference. Grateful for everything in my life, not just the land and the success in business and the affluence that's led to. I'm grateful for the people who do treat me with respect and dignity. And I show my gratitude by thanking them and also by treating them the same in return. I hope you're doing the same. I'm grateful for my health. I'm 51. I'm on 0 medications because I exercise daily. I eat a healthy diet. I do not abuse substances, and I stay away from tobacco products. I'm great. The guy I took with us, he was on 8 or 10 different medications. Every hour he had to take some kind of tablet. Probably couldn't have done the physical stuff we were doing anyway. And of course he would blame it on age. And I'd look at him and I'd say, we're the same age. Listen, don't make excuses. That's what losers do. Winners make ways. So you figure out how you want to better your life. Think of some things you might want to improve, and you go out and you do the work and do it. Don't blame the other guy. Don't make excuses. Look for the good. I will see you for more next time. From the most awesomest homesteading channel on the planet that has nothing to do with homesteading whatsoever. Homesteading off the grid.